everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's on the Tube, or welcome back if this is your 18th and sadly final episode review for Season 2 of Nancy Drew. It is sadly the end for now. We will be back with Season 3 this fall, but it's funny how we've already reached, I remember it was January, we finally got the season back, and here we are at the start of June. Summer's about to begin for me. Life is kind of going back to normal here in New York. I'm excited, but I'm also saddened that a lot of the shows are coming to an end. Thankfully, this television season definitely flew by way too fast, and hopefully when we come back this fall with hopefully a normal-ish schedule, we'll be able to kind of return back to where we kind of started with this overall show back in 2019. Hopefully we'll get to that point. But besides that, finale time. It's going to be a weird Season 2 review next week. As if you're unaware, we're doing the finale review. This is the finale review, so I won't be talking about anything about the overall season. Next week I'm going to talk about the season itself, and then I'm going to do Season 3's predictions after that. But for this episode, I think it was pretty good. I think it was a pretty good finale, I'll say so myself. It's always to talk about this because, for me, I never really noticed a see-through line throughout Season 2 mostly. There were some storylines and things we were following through. And definitely last week's revelations kind of woke me up to the fact, there was this aspect that we weren't thinking of us since literally January, and now it's coming back to the forefront. And I respect the writers for doing this. Like, oh, damn, I actually wasn't expecting that. And it worked out in its benefit. But I think mostly this episode definitely kind of helped serve more or less the psychological breakdown of one Nancy Drew. I think that was mostly the theme of the episode, as she kind of had a lot of revelations in this episode. Once again, pertaining to yet another life and death scenario for her. That it worked out. Plus, it was nice to have a proper finale. This was a proper Nancy Drew season finale. The last season finale wasn't really meant to be the finale. It was kind of it was cut short, but thankfully this time around we got a more. This is the end. This is the end of our story, and then we're going to pick things up in Season 3 with the next story. But overall, I think it was a pretty good end to the season. A pretty good episode overall. So let's go for the Butcher recap and talk about this week's episode of Nancy Drew, the last one for the season. So we begin once again with another round of attempts to save one of the Drew crew's lives, this time being Nancy, with the wraith that is attached itself to her. They just recently tried another ritual, which sadly doesn't work yet again. And she's like, okay, what's next? And she's starting to notice there's more visible marks on her arms this time around. And, she's looking very worn out, pretty much from everything they've been doing on her. It's really not that good. Mr. Drew does the typical, I'm going to recap a little bit of thing that, should be obvious since I was there in the room, but I'm going to do it because of the sake of the audience, recapping that what's going on with Nancy and what should they try next to try and help her. Everyone's just trying to think of the next thing to do. Personally, they're just thinking, and Gil, Nancy's boyfriend at this point, I'm assuming, shows up. Apparently it's been a week since the last episode, so they've just been trying nonstop to help Nancy, and nothing's working. And obviously Nancy's kind of been discommunicative since her priority is trying to get this wraith out of her, and it's not really working out so well for them, as Gil's basically trying to point out look, the only reason you're like this is because of them. You just need to separate yourself from them. And this is where, at least for me as a viewer, I was never a big fan of Gil. I really wasn't. He just seemed more of an arrogant, pompous, selfish being at times. And he really is. Sure, yeah, you understand his backstory. You kind of understand why he needs to be there. But you never really... I never really saw the benefits of, Nancy's attraction to him. And then Nancy kind of had this revelation. It's oh, I met you... I never got to associate myself with you without the wraith. It was always with the wraith. And yeah, because I do believe it was it just it was just Gil in Season 2. That was their only interaction. They didn't really have any romantic connection until after the wraith thing. And yeah, Nancy might have had a physical attraction to him, but the mental attraction definitely wasn't there. But the wraith kept blocking the the signs out of her because she needed to get that negative energy from Gil so that the Wraith can get stronger. So once Nancy realizes that, and even after Gil said, like, let's leave now, let's get away from them, let's just go somewhere, you and me, Nancy had that snap and just realized, no, I'm not going. I'm gonna stay here. We're done. And she finally had that moment of like, yeah, the Wraith can't stop me. I could still make my own choices without um, its interference. So I believe, yeah, Ryan's also there at the claw. I believe it's everyone. It's another all hands on deck situation. I think, yeah, Ryan's giving not typical. He's just telling them like, yeah, now that Everett's in jail, he managed to freeze him out of the company before he went to jail, meaning that Ryan is poor. He has no money, and with his mother's funeral coming up, he literally has no way to afford it. So that's going to be a really big problematic thing for him to climb. But of course, obviously, the priority for him right now is to make sure this I was going to say Leviathan, this Wraith is out of Nancy. I believe that, yeah, everyone starts putting up, trying to find any sort of leads they could to try and figure something out. Thankfully, the Historic Society lady calls in to say, hey, look, I got something. There might be a way not for you to get rid of it, but at least to understand its origins, to figure out, yeah, maybe you can find a clue here to like try and figure out how to reverse it or try to like beat it somewhat. So they take Nancy back to the woods where they perform this ritual, and it projects them a kind of like a flashback, a pseudo flashback, where hundreds of years ago, yet another Hudson ancestor, she's screwed over with some magical beings, and this is giving me some really big WandaVision vibes for some reason. Spoilers for WandaVision, I apologize, but it's been 3 months. You had time to finish it. This Hudson, her name is Temperance. Tempest? I think it's Temperance. She's being banished from Horseshoe Bay. These wizards, or these witches, wizards, whatever you want, magical beings, cast a protective barrier that prevents her from entering Horseshoe Bay, and she tries to create something to penetrate the barrier, but which is like this really very somewhat sophisticated machine. Where actually, now that I think about it, maybe it wasn't that. I don't really remember, but I don't remember how the time period works. But she builds this machine, and she manages to create this very small, tiny little creature, which is obviously the Wraith as a baby. But the creature doesn't really do much. The creature just walks away, crawls away, while the other witches, I'm assuming, kills Temperance or something like that. We don't really get to see what happens, but the Wraith got away. It never was caught, because they just assume, oh, it's a weakling. It's gonna do nothing. It's harmless. Should have killed it. Just saying, should have killed it. So now they know the origins of this Wraith. They try to realize, well, what if we use that machine to kind of reverse the process, maybe finally defeat it. So now they start looking for the machine. But while they're doing that, I believe we get a scene where I think Ace is calling up Amanda, kind of like just to maybe get her hands on this case. But she's like, oh, I gotta take care of my brother. He's so distraught with the whole breakup from Nancy, and he's just playing video games. Not crying like a normal breakup person would do, but he's just playing video games. And, her and Ace get into an argument because Ace wants her to be there, but she's telling him, look, he's my brother. I'm all that he has left. I can't just abandon him at this moment. But, even when Ace kind of like becomes a little bit, he's a little honest to say, look, your brother's not the best person in the world. He's kind of a dick. He's kind of like not the best influence to be around Nancy. Amanda takes as an insult and hangs up while Ace is trying to like plead with her and stuff like that. I know we got a scene where George and Bess are just trying to look for some clues, and Bess discovers this book in George's backpack or bag that is helping George create a will, because George has accepted the fact that Odette's in my body. She's going to take a lot of my life force with her, so I'm going to die soon. So I'm going to just get things ready for my family once I do pass, so that they have some sort of stability when she's gone. But Bess is imploring her, like, you shouldn't give up. You shouldn't just accept death, and but George isn't really listening to it. She's just kind of minding her own way, so to speak. I do believe they get. I'm just trying to wrap up all the scenes before we get like to the chunk. I do remember Ryan is getting all the preparations ready for his mother's funeral. Mr. Drew manages to pay for some of the expenses, which I'm like, dude, you barely are getting income in. How are you able to afford a funeral on your very limited salary? So, just keep that in mind, everyone. Just keep that in mind. But however, they're just trying to figure out again, like, what if Everett decides to announce Nancy as his granddaughter? They're still very scared that Nancy might. I think they're just trying to protect Nancy in terms of legality and stuff like that. And maybe Everett is going to try and prove like, oh hey, this guy, he stole my granddaughter, he raised her, he kidnapped her. He basically trying to destroy his career. So they're trying to think ahead, like, okay, how do we make sure we're safe for that? And Mr. Drew brings up this paperwork where if you sign it, you kind of, it's kind of like a time traveling document. Sorry, I'm tired. That's the last one for the season. Why not? That basically kind of exalts Ryan of his biological fathership and allows Mr. Drew to kind of take over as the real father. Even though while for paper, still everyone thinks like, oh, Nancy and Mr. Drew are related, this could completely exonerate Ryan from any sort of like lineage to like a proper fatherhood, which can protect them all legally, but obviously, ethics wise, is it the smartest thing to do? I don't believe it is, but whatever the case may be. So from there, so they eventually figure out like, oh, the device is in New York. There's a relative of the Hudsons that there's an image of her with that device, so she's probably the best bit of us getting to it. So they make a road trip to New York, but sadly for me, they don't go to the city because I live in the city. They go to some part of New York State, a wedding venue locale where, they're right. They get there pretty quickly. It's a fast travel system. You know what I'm saying? And they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we distract her long enough so that we can look for this machine and get the heck out of there. Nick was all ready for him and George to act like a married like an engaged couple and like pretend they're like surveilling the field. George is not 100% comfortable with it because she just isn't an actress, I guess that's her excuse is. But in reality, I don't think she wants to think about future stuff since she might not even have a future. But Odette kind of hears the actress word and kind of like takes Bess as her fiance, and they both pose as an engaged couple while the others plan through trying to get in. There's some real tension between Odette and Bess, since I know Odette is acting, I guess, or just trying to live out her fantasy of like actually marrying Bess. But then for Bess's side of things, like she knows like she can't have this, she can't be with Odette, so she's trying her best to like not get too emotionally attached to it, but she does have a point on it. So for everyone else, Nick and Ace managed to find the machine in one of the cabinets, and stupidly, like any cliche TV show, while they're moving this very sensitive object in this very quiet place, they knock over a vase. I don't know how you do that, and alerts the other Hudson to their presence. She's about to call the police. Nancy reveals her identity to her and like pleads with her, look, I'm going to die. I need this machine. Please help us. I don't want to die. And this woman has a kind of good heart and like admits, okay, fine, you can use the machine only on my premises, nowhere else. And they agree. So I completely forgot how they got the tears, because the process to make the rape was the blood of a Hudson and the tears. So I don't entirely know where they got the tears from. That's kind of a big mystery for me. So from there, I believe we get to they just head to an empty room in the venue. They perform the ceremony. Nancy's like, fuck it, just hurry up, give me, let the syringe, let this vial go through my hands so it can take my blood. And they use all the tears up in this ritual, and it works. It kind of lets the rape out temporarily, but then it starts going back in for Nancy's mind, to when she wakes up in her mind, I guess. She sees this evil version of her, this like I'm gonna call her Nancy Hudson, and Nancy says the Hudson is about to choke her out. George, as kind of like this form of self defense. I hate yawning, and keep in mind I've been up since 7 a.m. in the morning, so I apologize. Anyway, what was I going with this? Oh yeah, so that's sort of the so Nancy's mind is kind of creating these apparitions of Nancy's friend to kind of be these defense mechanisms, and also kind of like thinking of where Nancy really truly thinks of them as important in her life. So George is the first barrier. She keeps going through doors where they lead close to the rave. So I believe the next door after that is when Nancy's younger self solved her first case, and it's also this is like a visit for the worst times of Nancy's life, so or the most impactful moments of Nancy's life. So after Nancy almost becoming Nancy Hudson, the next one was when Nancy first became a private detective and private amateur detective. And her younger self kind of like pleading with like, we had such a perfect life, we were so amazing together, and then you threw it all away, and that sort of thing. Bess was the visionary for that one. The next one was when I don't think this was when Nancy's mom passed away, and she was like at her lowest, in her emotional state. But the theoretical, no, the symbolism was Nancy was in the pit, in her mother's graveyard pit, while Nick is looking above her, and Nick's kind of pleading with her, like, she's still trying, like, just unraveling these big traumas of her life and trying to figure out their meanings. Eventually she gets out of the pit and realizes that, like, yeah, Nick is is a friend. She was hurt that initially her and George paired up, but she is happy that they're together now, and that her and Nick are still friends. And the last one, which kind of isn't like a trauma, was just like another important memory of Nancy's life, is when she was born originally at the cliffside. And Ace is the symbol, the apparition there, and I think this is another like kind of like interpretive scene, since Nancy and Ace were really close in the scene, like they were really really close, and I think there was a fake out in the promo where I was like, are they going to kiss? Are they going to kiss? And then they weren't going to kiss. But after these 4 moments of like the most important trauma moments of Nancy's life, she goes through the final door and sees the Wraith very weakened from the machine, but still struggling to survive. Nancy realizes that these 4 trauma points were the main sources for Nancy's, for this Wraith to take its energy from. So the only way to get rid of the Wraith is to cut the connection from the traumas to the Wraith. But Nancy realized that if she does that, she will not only kill the Wraith, but she'll also kill her trauma, which all make up a part of her current identity. So, despite that fact, she severs the link between them and the Wraith, but she connects her traumas to herself, so that that experience, that pain, will forever guide Nancy into where she becomes next. And that does successfully kill the Wraith, and yeah, so they save Nancy yet again. That's pretty good. So everyone starts heading back to Horseshoe Bay and starts kind of like figuring out like the next move. Like this definitely ended the Wraith. This is a very weird season. I'll talk more about that next week. But in terms of like right here, right now, they save the day. They start heading back home, and then everyone kind of has their own like independent moments. George and Odette have like a one-on-one where George thanks Odette for helping out at the end, for like trying to like at least help steer the ship the other way, but Odette tells George, yeah, I'm starting to realize now that I'm a nuisance. I'm not helping things out. I think it's best if I just retreat to the deepest subconscious of your brain and just like not take any more of your life force and just let you live a normal life. Which George appreciates that. She doesn't accept it, but at least in this given moment, like, yeah, she'll take it. So, however, George still wants to do one last thing for Odette, and she writes a little note for Odette to give to Bess. So Odette, for the last time, I'm presuming, takes over George. She gives Bess some flowers, gives Bess the note, which Bess knows that already that they can never be together, and they can't. She still misses her, and she's gonna miss her, and she doesn't want her to go, but she knows she has to for the sake of George. But however, the note says giving Bess permission to kiss Odette, which they do, and during the kiss, we just get the real Odette in that moment, just kind of symbolizing like, yeah, this isn't a kiss between Bess and someone that looks like George. It's actually it's Bess and Odette, in the actual meaning of it, which is actually pretty. It works. It works pretty well. It's also kind of bittersweet because like I wasn't expecting this is the way to end Odette. I thought there was going to be a much more dramatic way, and they could still do it in season 3. I felt that this was very okay. I guess maybe they just didn't have more to do with Odette, and I really hope maybe they'll bring her up at some point in the future, or who knows? Really, who knows? Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Ace gives Amanda a call that, hey, look, I apologize for my voice last night, but I understand that Gil's your brother, and I understand you need to be there for him, but at the same time, you can't keep putting your life aside for him if, he's just not, you can't just depend your entire life on your brother. You have to do your own thing. And while Ace doesn't tell her to ditch her brother, is that what Ace tells her is like, if I will prioritize you in my life if you promise to prioritize me in your life. And there's like a brief silence there while they're both thinking of like what's going to happen next. Nick is finishing up a prototype sign for the upcoming youth center, and George is fully back to normal. She's fully happy again. This is actually the first time where George is fully at peace since season 1, because ever since like that near endpoint season 1, she's had to deal with a near-death cycle, and then once that was solved, she got a freaking ghost stuck in her body. So this is the first time where she's at peace with, like, she's happy with herself. Like, this is a full her, and like now she can fully explore where things go, and she's more confident than ever that she wants to marry Nick, and she asked Nick to marry her, and I'm assuming they both say yes. So I'm like, yay! But you've only known each other for about 3 months, so 3-4 months, or you've been dating each other for 3-4 months, so kind of rushing a little too quick if you ask for my opinion, but okay, whatever the case might be. I believe from then on, we get to Nancy, who kind of had this revelation that like, yeah, I guess Ace does matter to me a little bit more than I'm leading on, because there was just in that in her mind, like their moment together was like so closer than the other 3. That must mean something. And Nancy maybe starting to realize maybe she does have some genuine feelings for Ace. But when she gets to Ace's doorstep, his mom tells her that, oh no, he just left for a trip with Amanda. So Ace is fully gone, and even the mom detects in Nancy's face like, oh, you're upset. What's wrong? And yeah, Nancy is upset because she was kind of hoping that Ace was going to be there and kind of like, hopefully maybe Amanda was going to say no to her so that maybe they can have a chance. But no, those two are about to begin a pretty long road trip together, and it seems like they're happy, but Ace realized like something's wrong here. Like, I'm missing something. Something is like not being resolved here. But I mean, it's like it's fine. It's just like a start of a vacation jitters. Like you're not gonna notice it that much. So, but the two drive off away from Horseshoe Bay, in their steed. I believe, did we get another scene? No, I think that's generally it. We just head back to the house where Nancy brings home a bunch of freaking cookies. Like, that's a shit ton of cookies. And this is gonna be. I'm gonna use this title next season. I really hope we get an episode next season where I could just say Nancy and her 2 dads. I really hope. We'll see how that goes, because it seems like for the foreseeable future, Ryan's gonna be living with Nancy and Mr. Drew because he has nowhere to go. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, his mom is dead. His dad is in prison, basically. He's locked out of his fortune. He has literally no one besides them right now. And Mr. Drew's like, yeah, you can crash here for a while. I don't mind. We let Bess do it for, like, I'm assuming months by this point, so who cares? And Nancy tells him, like, hey, tomorrow I'm going to hold a press conference. I'm going to announce that I am a Hudson. I am ready to take over as the next proper heir to Hudson Enterprises, and I'm going to use most of the finances to give reparation for all the people that Mr. Hudson affected, which seemed like a solid plan. But obviously Nancy's next priority is like, okay, how do we protect Mr. Carson? How do we make sure he doesn't get any sort of like legalized penalty? And then Nancy also comes up with the same thing that Mr. Drew came up with earlier in the episode with the whole paperwork to kind of disown Ryan as a father. And while Nancy's like a little confused, like, "Are you sure you want to give up being my dad?" And he's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." So yeah, the three of them seem to be settling into this new life. Mr. Drew's actually being a real dad to Ryan. Like, hey, this is how you watch this. This is so weird. Like, Mr. Drew is the dad to Ryan, who's his dad, and Nancy, who this is all confusing. This is all confusing. But even though like we're having this finally a nice peaceful moment in Horseshoe Bay, Nancy receives a letter from the wedding venue from the woman. And it turns out the woman wasn't just a regular relative of the Hudsons. She was the Tempest. Well, Temperance, I believe that's her name. Temperance? Yeah, I think that's the name. And she still has her magic, and she uses Nancy's blood to. I initially thought like, oh, are we gonna get an evil Nancy storyline, like an actual physical duplicate? I'm like, please don't. But no, it turns out she uses Nancy's blood to rejuvenate herself to a younger state. And it works. So now she's fully young again. And now she's coming home. She's coming to Horseshoe Bay for some reason. It's also realized that she's been keeping track of the Hudson family for a very long time. And it's apparently been 7 generations since... I don't remember. The family tree. It doesn't really read well. But she's young again. She arrives at Horseshoe Bay. She uses Nancy's blood again to penetrate the force field and manages to cross through. And now she's in Horseshoe Bay. For whatever reason she was here originally, we don't know. But her presence is felt throughout the entire freaking town. As heavy knocks go on Nancy's doors, she realizes, like, what else have we brought to town? Because the last season finale, they let a lot of things out of the Historic Society. Now they actually brought something back home. And I'm thinking, fuck. What's next? We don't know, because that is an end to season 2. I still think this was a pretty good season finale through and through. I do believe so. I think this was a very disjointed season, but I'll save that for more conversation for next week. But for this episode, I definitely did like the focus on Nancy's psychological nature and helping us figure out more of like how she came up with this, because we knew like her trauma definitely was painting like the current picture of where she is now, but it was everything combined that kind of like really made her what she is today and how important those elements are for her. I appreciated the way that I appreciate how much they want to wrap up this season so they have more room for next season. I was not a big fan of why they ended Odette this way. Like, oh, I can just go back into your conscience, just not bother you again. I shouldn't affect your life force. I don't know how that works, but okay. Sure, let's roll with that. But, I mean, I know that was going to have to end at some point somehow negatively, and I guess this is like the tamest way to go out. But I don't know. I was expecting something more traumatic than that. George and Nick getting married already is a bit like eye-batty to me. Like, again, I know I shouldn't be saying much because I reviewed The Rookie, and 2 characters from that show literally got married pretty quickly, or got engaged to get married pretty quickly, so I shouldn't really be saying much. But it's just weird. It doesn't really. It was kind of like out of left field for them. They're still pretty young, so like, do we really need a wedding this time early? I mean, that's just my viewpoint on the matter, and I believe. Am I missing something? I was a little sad that Beth kind of like got her one moment in the episode and didn't really get much to do. Same with Ace. I mean, we're setting things up for them for season 3, so I don't really mind the lack of attention a little bit for them, and hopefully we paint them in much more, in a much more higher place to take them next season. Hopefully, so there's that. But overall, like, they definitely did a pretty decent job trying to wrap up everything from this season that they were managed to set up, and hopefully setting up a buttload of things for them to explore for season 3, which I do respect. But besides those couple negativities, I still enjoyed this episode through and through. So I'm gonna give this episode 1.5 thumbs up. I'll give it that. I will give it that. So, and that was it for the 2nd season of Nancy Drew, everyone. This has been a 18 weeks of fun, mostly consecutive, which I am very surprised, but I am very happy nonetheless. It's been a fun ride for you all. Hopefully, it's been a fun ride for me. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this finale for Nancy Drew. I'm open to the conversation down below, as always. And I think that's going to do it for me tonight, because I got to wake up pretty damn early tomorrow, so I'm going to try and hit the sack early after this editing. So, with that being said, this has been What's in the Tube from ActionX, reviewing every episode of Nancy Drew's second season. If you want to know what we're doing overall and What's in the Tube besides our Nancy Drew reviews, we are doing Walker episode reviews each and every Friday morning after a brand new episode on Thursday nights on the CW, or free the next day on the CW app. Walker's still on break this week. We'll be back next week with more episodes. Hopefully, actually not hopefully. We're still in for a very rough scheduling period, so I'm oofing myself already. Not in a grunting with them, that sort of thing. We're doing High School Musical, the series episode reviews each season for season 2 each and every Saturday mornings at their brand new episode on Fridays on Disney Plus. And this coming Monday we have the 200th episode of What's in the Tube, the overall show. I mean, we are doing Gotham. We're calling it the Gotham Experiment. It's not a review per se, but we're still talking about it, so stay tuned for that. I really don't want to get too much into it because it's a really fun episode. I really had a fun time with George making that episode, so stay tuned for that. But if you're only a Nancy Drew fan, then you're still in luck. Even though we've wrapped up our Season 2 episode reviews, next week we will be doing a Season 2 spoiler-free review for all the people who have yet to watch Nancy Drew proper, if they still have time to watch it on the CW app, or later on, hopefully this year, on HBO Max. So, kudos to them. That will be next week. And then the week after that, we will be doing a Season 3 predictions video, which I'll be talking about everything I want to see in the third season. And yeah, all that sort. So, and that will wrap up our Nancy Drew coverage for this television season. And then we'll start talking about other stuff down the road. I think the summer update for ActionX comes out this Monday or Tuesday, so I should be able to talk more about I'll be able to talk about more about what's coming up for What's in the Tube. Then I think it's going to be much more of a different summer than last year. We're doing things a little bit differently, but stay tuned for that. But again, this has been What's in the Tube from ActionX. Please subscribe to ActionX on youtube.com/ActionX. Ring that bell for notification when our next Nancy Drew video is live, which is normally every Thursday mornings. Like, favorite, share this review if you want to. It helps us get us out there to other members of the Drew Crew fandom. It helps us beat up that YouTube background that I hate ever so much. And as always, sharing is for free. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates for the channel. And until next time, hopefully for next week, for the next 2 weeks, so join me on those other bonus videos. But if this is the end of the road for now, I thank you so much for watching me throughout these 18 episode reviews. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. This was a blast. I can't wait to do this once again next season for season 3. But until then, until I see you again this fall, because we will be returning this fall, thank God. But until then, I want you all to stay safe out there. Be good to each other as always. And until next time, this fall, if you're not going to join me the next 2 weeks, peace out.